Hi, Anita. How are you?
Very good. How are you today?
Good. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being my guest speaker today on a topic which you and I have been working together since a long time, which is all about the benefits of a customer experience capability assessment.
Absolutely.
As we've been preparing for this live video, David, when did we work on our first CX capability assessment together?
I think we started at Accenture 15 years ago together. Is that right?
Yeah, maybe
A long
60
time ago.
years or
16,
something.
yeah,
Not
quite a
giving
few.
away my
Yeah.
age.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
we've done lots of projects together. Yeah, I think the
Yeah.
first big CX one, first customer experience, well, first sort of capability assessment I did was when I was with Accenture, which was for Virgin, which was, yeah, really interesting project.
Yeah,
Working with
that's
C-level
that's
execs there. It's great.
very good. And David, for everyone who doesn't know you in the audience, can you give us a quick, I guess, background of who you are and what you do? 15 years past Accenture.
Yeah, so I mean, my background is I've been working in the CRM space since the late 90s. So I worked on some of the early event-driven campaign management tools, and then since then I've been working with various consultancies like Accenture. Obviously, worked with Anita on lots and lots of different projects with lots of really great clients and partners as well.
Yeah, very, very
And
awesome.
we'll probably get into some of those in a minute. So yeah.
So it's fair to say, you're definitely a CX strategist who has helped many organizations across multiple industries really be successful in either CRM adoptions or really driving the value out of whatever tech they've got. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, done
Yeah.
a lot of work with this capability assessment and also vendor selections and just really helping companies with their customer experience and CRM digital strategies. That's what I specialize in.
Brilliant. So what I thought we can discuss today is really, I guess, debate a bit of what you see or we both actually see in the industry of, real challenges organizations have today where, technologies keeps innovating and there's more and more tools on the market. Some of them are very similar. Customer expectations are growing, and what was sort of acceptable 5 or 6 years ago, post-COVID, customers just really expect a much better service. But without me trying to keep talking about this, I really want to get your point of view of what you think sort of the key challenges are, what organizations from mid to large size face today when we think about customer experience.
Yeah, I mean, since working with it the last 20 years, unfortunately, the story is still very similar. So vendors come in, they have some great stories about some great products, and customers get really excited about it. But often the fundamentals aren't there. And the fundamentals, really come back to data and how that's being used and how the customer experience is actually happening. So, I have some great examples. I've worked with a number of companies. I work with a really great company, T2T, absolutely fantastic company. Like they are, customer experience in store is fantastic. Everyone in the company is on brand. It's just a great organization to work with, really great products. But I did some work with them on their sort of CRM capability and customer experience. And they, as a company, thought they were doing a really great job and they were really happy with where they were. But when we ran the customer experience surveys and things and actually looked at it, there were some parts of it which were really terrible. So like their online experience and some of the customer service when something had gone wrong was not good at all. So it was really ruining what was a fantastic experience for the company, just at a few key points. And that was one of the things that really came out of that. We kind of identified where these bottlenecks and problems were and really tried to make the whole experience as good as it could be across the board.
Amazing. And those outcomes, were they surprise to the leadership team?
Yeah, I mean, it's often the case that like you talk to companies and they've invested a huge amount in technology in different parts of technology, and then a business unit will come to them and say, "Well, we need to buy this. We need some more technology." And I think, "Well, we spent all this money. Why haven't we got the results we need?" And that's where often I come in. People say, "Well, can you do an assessment for us? Can you see what the problems are, and do we need this new piece of technology, or is this really a problem or not?" So what I generally do, and I know we've worked on things together where we always start off with a strategy. What is it the company is trying to achieve? You know, and the fundamentals, are they trying to increase sales? Are they trying to retain customers? Are they trying to grow customers? Or a combination of all of those? And we look at, what are the levers they're trying to pull to do that? And we look at the capability in terms of their marketing, their sales and service, and then look at those across the different dimensions of not just technology, but people, process, organization, and governance. And when we start to drill into, say, the marketing, we look at the data, where the data's coming from, how they get that single customer view, how they're getting actionable insights, how those insights are actually being actioned and using, say, campaign management to drive that, how those insights are getting delivered to the sales team, how the sales team actioning on those. And often you'll find there's some bottlenecks. So, a great example, a lot of people will spend a lot of money on data lakes and data warehouses, and sometimes they're done for a very particular purpose. So, for example, at Coles, they had some really good data warehouse stuff, but a lot of it was structured around the product. So really good data warehouse and data infrastructure around getting products to the market, getting the right products in the stores, but not so much looking at it from a customer perspective. So a lot of things we worked on at Coles was where the bottlenecks were in terms of their capability, and they had some really good analytics, some really great actionable insights, but a lot of their campaigns were taking a huge amount of time to do because they were basically doing a lot of manual work. So one of the sort of key insights that came out of that was they really need to get a decent campaign management automation tool in.
Yeah,
which was a great product to work
on. You speak to my heart on that one, right? Because we've done a lot of work over the years in digital marketing, where the whole conversation is about real time, personalized, omni-channel, and the omni-channel is not limited to digital marketing, but it really needs to go across sales and service and in store and online to really connect a holistic customer experience. Which is, if we think about even a mid-sized organization, nevertheless to a large-scale organization, it's a complicated task because there's so many different customer interaction points. And, I fully agree with you, David. This is really one of the number one challenges organizations have, right? Is connecting the data, creating insights, and then using the insights to create a better customer experience, which is more personalized, relevant, the right message through the right channel. And also enabling the individual teams, for example, the call center, right? Often I feel like the call centers or service centers are sort of a separate business unit, kept separately to, whoever runs the comms on the front end and whatnot. Yeah. And there's not a connection. Have you seen those issues somewhere before as well?
Many times.
How would you address it? Yeah.
And again, it comes down to looking at that, the sort of, for me, the three core elements of the marketing, sales, and service, and often the service gets left behind. And the service, is kind of an afterthought because it's not a profit center; it's a cost. So people are not looking at, that it actually does have an impact on profits, because if people get bad customer service, they won't come back. And especially now, net promoter scores and people looking online, what's the reviews of this like? So the first thing people do when they're looking to deal with a company is, what are their reviews like? And if they're no good, if the customer service is not good, they'll not use them.
Yeah, spot on.
So that's why it's so key. And a lot of companies, I've worked with, again, often they look for a technology solution, and it's often not just a technology solution. Often it's a process and governance issue, and sometimes a training issue as well.
Yeah, so training. So if you say process, governance, and training, what exactly, what do you have in mind if you talk about those things?
So, I'll give an example. There's a telco, which will remain nameless, that did they had a customer who was ringing in all the time and complaining, and they're basically annoying the service center. So the service center looked at their how much money they were spending, and they weren't spending a lot. So they basically very politely told them that perhaps they could go somewhere else. Now, it turned out this was a grandmother of somebody very, very, very influential, who got very upset and cancelled all their contracts globally with this company.
Wow.
Which is a bit of an extreme example, but yes, it was, the proverbial Zeppelin-sized thing hit the wind farm. It was not a good day in the office.
Well, it's a very interesting example, though, of really knowing your customers, right? And if specifically service centers, the technologies are there since 15 years. I mean, I remember when I was back at Accenture doing call center project where if there's an inbound call, any call, it's fully connected, with the full background of the customer's history, to a point where you could actually leverage a service call to a potentially product recommendation or upsell or cross-sell activity if it's really done right, and if the person on the other end of the phone really has a holistic view of the customer. But David, data and connecting those kind of processes is one thing. What's your point of view of organizational silos and actually bringing customer experience at the center of, I guess, the senior leadership table?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely key. I mean, so few companies do that, and people have got different profit centers. They look at always looking at it through their own lens, and not just at what is key for the customer. And I was dealing recently with a wagering company, and the top 2% of their customers make up 41% of their revenue.
Wow.
They've got 600 customers that make up 13% of their revenue, and they didn't have a separate call center for them. They're queuing up with everyone else with 15 minutes on hold. It's just crazy.
Yeah, it's insane,
So,
isn't it?
you need to really look at what are you going to do with those. Have some differentiated journeys. Like these are your valuable customers. Let's do something special for them.
Yeah.
And let's automate as much as possible as well. Make it as easy for them as possible.
Yeah, that's it. Because as a customer, you're frustrated, right? If you have to wait on a holding pattern for 15 minutes and there's not even an alternative way of engagement through a chatbot or online or a callback option or whatnot, right? So you very likely want to keep doing business with that organization.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then, so I mean, I think today a lot of people who work in, customer experience, digital, are in sort of leadership roles in organizations. I think the understanding of the importance of customer experiences now, I think, has penetrated the market. I think a lot of organizations have it now as a key priority. It has made it into the boardrooms and executive leadership teams. So where does the CX capability assessment fit in? Like, what are the benefits, back to our key topic of today?
Yeah.
What can an organization expect? How long does it take? Who's involved? What's involved? And why should an organization even go and do it?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So often, as I said before, I get called in when there's a reason for it. So often it's a business unit said, we want to spend this extra money. And the execs of the board have said, well, why are we spending all this extra money? We've already spent a lot of money on CX, or we've already spent a lot of money on digital or CRM or whatever it is. Why are we spending more? What are the extra benefits? And that's where I usually get called in. So what I'm doing is looking at, okay, well, what first of all, agreeing what the strategy is, and then finding what is holding them back from delivering on that strategy, and seeing if this particular thing is what it is. So generally what I do is, we've got an industry standard model, which you and I have used many times over the years, and it sort of starts off with looking at various elements and then going to capability and then looking at the components of that. So we look at industry standard model across a number of different dimensions. We link it to their capability and their objectives. So we say, okay, what is it you're trying to achieve, and then what do you need to achieve? So we look at it across usually across those core elements of marketing, sales, and service, and then we break it down into further elements. So we look at data management, we look at insights, we look at campaign management, we look at sales channels, we look at sales performance, we look at online service, after sales, feedback and reporting. We look at across the different dimensions of people, process, organization, and governance across those different things, and we'll tweak this model depending on the client and their particular needs. Yeah. And what we do is, the way it works is, we'll basically have this model to frame discussions, and we'll meet with all the senior execs and then work our way down through the organization tree and they'll recommend people to talk to. And sometimes we'll end up interviewing 30 or 40 people. And all those meetings, we record them all and minute them all. So we've got really clear record of what people have said. Mm-hmm. And then we distill that down and say, okay, well, across those different dimensions, across those elements, where are we now and where do we need to be?
Mm-hmm.
So we come up with a gap analysis that says, and some Harvey balls that say, look, this is where we are now for this capability, this is where we need to be, and this is the impact. And sometimes, we find that it's quite surprising that some areas are actually a lot stronger than others, or the business is stronger in areas than they thought they were, and other areas are a lot weaker. And sometimes there's some real bottlenecks, like at Coles, the bottleneck was really that automated campaign management was really holding them back from delivering huge amounts of targeted, customized and personalized campaigns to individuals on a regular basis. And we'll identify those gaps, and then what we do is we come up with a agreement to that. So we hold a number of workshops and get everyone to agree that this is what the gaps are, this is what the problems are, and this is the way to address them. And then we come up with a roadmap to say, okay, well, this is what we should do in the short, medium, and long term, and these are the projects we should stop, start, and continue. And so what it then gives the executive leadership is a very clear view of what they should be doing and what their roadmap is going forward. And a clear direction to say, okay, well, these are the projects we should really look at, keep going, and these are the ones that we should look at stopping, and these are the ones that we should look at prioritizing. And that's proved really useful. Like I've done this assessment at lots of different organizations. So Coles, Origin Energy, T2, Virgin Australia, University of Western Sydney. It's really key. And also the other thing that often comes out is talking to senior execs. Some of them have got a fundamental misunderstanding of what is meant by customer experience, what is meant by CRM, and some of them are sending messages from on high about this is what we should be doing. It's just confusing the leadership team. So often it's a bit of education that has to be done very subtly and diplomatically to educate them on what should be happening. I mean, a great example at Western Sydney Uni, you talk about silos. The customer experience for a new student, there's so many different systems at a university for registering a student, so that when a student's looking at universities, there's a big marketing push to get them into the university, and then their first experience at the university, then they register for courses, and then their class management, and then when they leave university and become an alumni, there's most of those systems at most universities don't talk to each other.
Yeah, you're spot on, right? I've been personally working with quite a few universities over the years as well, and it's totally fragmented for most of them. Yeah. David, we have a really interesting audience question here, which I may just pop on here, and it's a long one. So it's, hi, Subhash. Good to see you listening in here today. So the question is, if you don't mind, sometimes or many times when we talk about custom insights, there's a natural inclination to think about end customers, like the shoppers or the end user of something. But we tend to forget the people who support these systems. So how many times have we ignored customer insights in managing the systems versus prioritizing more to improving the user interface and the facade? So with that, I'm assuming, Subhash, you mean like the organizational, like the internal people who actually drive the customer experience throughout the organization, yeah?
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons when I do the capability assessment, we spend a lot of time interviewing people. So we sometimes interview 30, 40 people. So great question. And we really want to understand from internal, not just from on high, but for people actually on the ground, what the real issues are and what the problems are and what the impacts are. Because you're right, often, there's some great ideas, but sometimes the impact is very, very high on the people internally. Yeah. And sometimes that's too high to actually deliver an effective customer experience. Yeah, sometimes there's a balance between giving a great customer experience and actually being able to deliver it consistently and repeatedly.
Yeah, and we also, quite interestingly, literally, excuse me, just not too long ago, like literally just a month ago, to be honest, we've done a CX capability assessment for one of our clients, and it's a very well-known online retailer and auctioning house. So we've done sort of a light touch CX capability assessment, and exactly to your point, Subhash, right? So what we've discovered is capacity is a huge issue, right? But also the capability of knowing how to use the products they have already. Yeah. So internal stakeholder management becomes a huge exercise. And if a CX capability assessment is done properly, so you kind of have the opportunity to listen to all point of views, because you're talking to so many departments in an organization, and people can really offload, right? And then they will become part of that solution creation and the road mapping, which gives them a sense of being able to influence and change of what customer experience looks like for an organization.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Because as you do this assessment, as you're interviewing, you're getting buy-in with everyone. They feel like they've been engaged. They feel like they're part of the solution. And the other thing that often comes up, I've had a couple of instances where people say we need a particular piece of software, a new campaign management tool, or a new whatever it is, and you go in, and actually they've got a perfectly functioning one. I mean, there's one utility company which will remain nameless, and they were looking at. We ran a vendor selection to look at new campaign management tool, and we engaged with IT, we engaged with procurement. We engaged with marketing, we engaged with all these different teams, and we went out to market and we went to 4 vendors, and we discovered from these vendors that this company had actually bought 4 different campaign management tools and had licenses from 4 different vendors, and no one in the organization knew anything about it. Absolutely crazy. So it was like they didn't need a new campaign management tool. They actually needed to pick one of the ones they'd already bought and start using it.
Yeah, and it's a little bit like CDPs to all the MarTech geeks out there. CDP is the customer data platform, which is basically a centralized software, enabling real-time omni-channel customer interactions. And CDP is like this new magical bullet which solves all customer experience problems. But after a lot of debates within some of my key consultants in Kite, our point of view is it really boils down to the strategy and to actually knowing your use cases of where you drive your moments of truth and your value back into the business, and then which technology you actually need, which is going to solve that business problem.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, software vendors are very good at pushing their solutions as magic bullets. And they buy our software and all your problems go away. And as we both know through bitter experience, that doesn't happen. I've got a client I'm working with at the moment, and they've got some particular business units where they've got a vendor coming in who's really trying to push a particular software solution.
Yeah.
And it'll solve all their problems. And we're saying, well, look, it's not, because the underlying data just is in such a mess. They've got a core legacy system that's got 25 years worth of customer data in it. And they've got 500,000 records, and we thought, well, 500,000 records, that's great, 500,000, and we started looking through it. And when we found out, once we looked at how many records would actually a customer had transacted with them in the last 2 years and had a valid email or a valid mobile number that had opted into marketing, it went down from 500,000 to 20,000 customers.
Wow, that is insane, right?
Yeah. I mean, so suddenly, suddenly your issue is not, do we need a platform to market to these people? It's actually getting quality data. And out of those 20,000 customers, we're just starting to look at, how clean is this data? How useful is it?
Yeah. And, data is really, we see data being one of the key issues again and again and again, right? Absolutely. And one of the key things, talking about teams and people capacities and capabilities and whatnot, automation still plays a huge factor, right? Technology is there to automate a lot of things and still have sort of that one voice, personalized customer engagement. But a lot of organizations by far have not optimized their automations of how they could do this, not within digital marketing, but also not across back to sales or service or online and whatnot. So automation is a key thing which can free up capacity, which allows people then to focus on the strategic objectives and use the power of the mind to drive innovation.
Absolutely. I mean, a good example where we both worked at Qantas. I mean, they have some absolutely fantastic people there. Qantas is one of my favorite clients. They've got really good technology, really good, really good people and data, and they've got some really useful things. Like, the frequent flyer number is great because it really helps to identify people. But Qantas has got lots of different business units, and one of the things I worked with Qantas on, they've got obviously the airlines business, but the frequent flyer business has lots of different business units in it as well. Like they've got the Qantas Wine, they've got Qantas Golf, they've got a whole host of different business units, and all those different business units are all competing for voice of the customer. And the top percentage of customers, the sort of the plat ones and the high spenders, are the ones that are all trying to target at the same time. So it was one of the things we worked on there was how often can you message people, and they'd been told initially look at rules, but what we thought there was sort of engagement scores of how engaged are your customers with you. So if like with me, every email, every message I get from Qantas, I open it, click through and have a look what it is, because it's generally very relevant to me. And we did a lot of work on that to see, well, how often can we contact people? So we just got a message. I thought that was quite an interesting one. Do you mind just bringing that up?
Sorry, what message is it?
Oh, we're just something just popped up on the screen.
Oh, that one from Peter. Yeah, so he said
Yeah.
data is often overlooked as organizations look for a platform which will solve their issues. Sometimes it's back to the basics. Yeah.
Couldn't agree more, Peter. I mean, a great example, we had Adam Bravo, who's head of marketing for MGM Casinos, came over and talked to us. We're doing some work with Coles, and he was basically telling us, MGM Casinos have the most amazing data sets on people. So when you go to an MGM casino, you get a card, it tracks you, it knows every single place you've gambled, where you've eaten. Like, the data sets are amazing. And every year they run a competition for interns. And the interns competition is, they said, right, you can have whatever data you want, and you've got to run a marketing program. And he said they had this one guy, and he was super arrogant, super cocky, and they all hoped he wouldn't win. And he put everyone's backs up, and he said, I just need 2 pieces of data. I need month of birth, and I need gender, and that's all I need, and I'm going to hammer this. And they all thought, okay, whatever. And they had other interns who were doing analysis on which machines people gambled at and how often and all this sort of things. And he goes, no, I just need those 2. And what he did a birthday campaign, and he sent it out to males, and it was a picture of a female at a bar with a drink, come party in Vegas for your birthday. And for the females, he sent one out of a couple going into the day spa at the MGM saying, come and celebrate your birthday with your partner, with your loved one. And it was the most successful campaign MGM had ever run.
Just simple, hey, isn't it?
Just keep it simple. Like these, they got such rich data sets, but it was just a great example of just keeping it really, really simple. And sometimes those simple campaigns work really well. Like we're doing one at the moment with my current client. We've done a really simple, an abandoned cart. People have been shopping on your website, left something in a cart. We send them a reminder, say, hey, you've left something in your cart. We're getting like a 60 plus open rate on it, 60% open rate on it. And we can attribute, you can see the revenue that's coming through. It's just really good. So, we're getting pretty good open rates as it is, but a 60% open rate is just fantastic.
I could not agree more with you, David. We've been seeing it again and again and again. It's like sort of those basic things which, everyone or most people know work well are still lacking, some thought or automation for a lot of organizations.
Yeah, and a lot of the vendors are often offering these super complex, super sophisticated campaigns, and sometimes they're right, but often you get the basics right. I mean, Qantas is a great example. They do the basics really well, and they're starting to do some of the really sophisticated stuff. And some of the stuff they do is absolutely amazing. Some of their campaigns they run are completely blown away by the sophistication of them. But it's because they've got the basics right, and they're doing those really, really well.
That also comes back to the CX capability or maturity model, right? Like, what's your maturity? And it's like the foundation of a house, right? You got to build it up in layers before you can do the really complex stuff. Yeah. Really focus on the basics. We have one more question here from Emily. So she's commenting on what you said before around what's the definition of CX and CRM. For example, CRM is often a tech platform or process, and what's your point of view on that?
Yeah, so CRM, I mean, that's a great question. Thank you, Emily. CRM to me, it's not really a system. So there's a lot of misunderstanding about CRM. People think CRM, like I talk something, CRM Salesforce and Salesforce is CRM. No, it's not. They're really good about talking about, all the vendors are really good about talking about how CRM is their platform. CRM is really all about making sure you're dealing with your customer relationship management. So it's a systems, processes, and technology you use to service that. And to me, it's automation at scale. So it's across those 3 areas. It's CRM, really split into 3 areas, which is marketing. So CRM for marketing, so marketing automation, where you're doing mass communications targeted at scale and automating those. For sales, it's about making sure your sales force is automated. So you're reminding your salespeople when they need to visit their customers, what the next sale is, tracking those sales. And for service CRM is about making sure you're servicing your customers correctly and keeping them happy and sorting out their issues. But CRM fundamentally is about making sure you're acquiring, retaining, and cross-selling those customers while you're reducing your costs. And if it's not doing that, it's really not worth doing.
Yeah, I love it.
Hopefully that answers your question, Emily.
Very good. I can't believe the half an hour is up, so I could keep talking to you about this topic, which we both so passionately love. So for anyone who listened to this, if you want to have a one-on-one coffee catch-up, deep dive with me, David, or both of us, or either of us, we're happy to debate this further, because it is quite a wide topic. It's quite a deep topic, but also equally very important for a lot of organizations. David,
thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. That's all I was going to say. And thank you for all those of you listening. Really appreciate it. And if as Anita says, got any questions, fire them through.
Awesome. Thank you, David, for your time. And I'm sure we'll see each other soon. Yeah.
Pleasure as always. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.